Hello everyone and welcome to webinar by Code Development. My name is Nick. Today's topic will be automated testing for IBM Maximo. Today's speaker is Duško Delić. Duško is a long-time IBM business partner and his professional experience spans across the companies like BDP Zenith, MRO and IBM. Without any further ado, I'm leaving you with Duško. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the theme of automated testing for IBM Maximo. So as Nick kindly introduced me, my name is Duško Delić and I'm Director at Development Ltd. I hope you all can see my screen. If not, do send the chat message and we'll see what we can do about it. So assuming that you can hear me and you can see my screen, let's start with this webinar. A quick introduction to our company. We've been established since 1997. We have offices in London, UK, and in Belgrade, Serbia. We are a Maximo consulting company, and our current focus is on automated testing for IBM Maximo. So, in line with that, things that we do, we develop a technology called MaxTAF, and that is a specialized test automation solution for Maximo. We also provide Maximo testing services, testing expertise. That includes strategies around Maximo testing, definitely strategies around automated testing of Maximo, and then following on from that, preparation of identification of test suites that are required for specific Maximo implementations, and then automation of these test suites and general testing. We also are just a general Maximo consultancy as well, focusing on technical aspects of Maximo implementation projects. Okay, so we're talking about automated testing of Maximo, and normal question that everybody who is started looking into this way of testing is looking for what are the immediate benefits and what are the long-term benefits of automated testing. So let's go through some of the key points. But I would also say that kind of like common sense prevails here. It is always, in long term especially, better to automate anything really than to keep doing it manually, especially if such activity doesn't necessarily require human creativity. So one of the buzzwords of the day is agile principles and methodologies like Scrum, which are actually slowly but surely changing the way how IT world organizes their projects. So we are replacing our old ways of waterfall project organization, where we would have distinct phases of business analysis, specification, development, test, and everything is delivered at once. IT world is moving towards more frequent releases, bite-sized releases, which are introducing a functionality gradually, step by step, rather than as kind of like big bang approach. And these frequent releases require lots of testing. So whereas in waterfall scenario, if we are having big releases which we will only test at the very end, okay, that is one lot of system testing that we are doing maybe every 4 months. Whereas now, maybe every 2 weeks, we want to do a release. We still need to do the full regression testing of the system. So there is a strong need to find a cost-effective and reliable way of doing a full system regression testing on demand. So, okay, again, common sense. If you automate all of your tests and then thereafter they're run by computers, what your cost of running the test, and let's not confuse it with cost of getting to the point of automating all of the tests, but pure cost of running the test is negligible. It's the cost of electricity that your servers will consume when running these tests. So that is like the key cost differentiator between manual testing and automated testing is in the fact that once when you've done all of your preparation, development, and all of that, once when you're at the stage that you can actually run your test, that's where your costs become very, very low. And because it doesn't cost us to run these tests, and because they can even work ungodly hours, like overnight, the computers don't care, we can now do much more testing. So why test at the very end of development cycles? Why not test every day? Why not test every day and find out immediately the following morning if some new changes that you've introduced the previous day have worked all right, or maybe they have introduced certain problems, and then we can immediately start addressing those things. So that follows on that it basically provides early defect detection in development phase. That is very important. It's important from several perspectives. It's, of course, much cheaper to fix something that you broke only the day before than to fix exactly the same thing, which you have introduced to the system maybe 3-4 months before. And then it's not only that thing that you need to fix, but you have to fix many other things that relied, on that change that you put in, which is, not good. With this early defect detection and lower cost to fix, we hence expect to, and actually it's been empirically proven that you will end up with fewer defects in your production maximum. And that's where the real benefits start showing up. So fewer defects to start with, you will have happier users. So the uptime of Maxima is going to be much higher. People using Maxima are going to be happier with it. But also, aside of that human aspect of Maxima system being of high quality, you also have like serious cost saved by just like all of Maxima working, because if we have a defect in a production system, that can have very significant cost consequences. Can you imagine if you are running an oil platform and because Maxima is down, you can't produce oil, or even simple things that, company can't raise purchase orders because integration is not working and so on. So it could be serious and very costly consequences of any defect that have that sort of effect on Maxima. So yes, the whole idea of automated testing is that you eventually end up with a more stable and more robust Maxima. Okay, and the last option that I have here is that it's kind of like, because full regression testing, if you're doing it manually, is labor intensive, and usually IT departments that are looking after Maxima don't really have those sorts of resources on hand. They tend not to, for example, keep up with patches and upgrades that are sent from IBM for the very fear of regression. So they look at the patch or an upgrade release and they think like, well, there is nothing in this patch or release for me. However, if I put it in just for the sake of putting it in, then it might break something, and we don't have the manpower now to try it out and go to full regression testing to make sure that nothing bad is going to happen. Whereas if you've automated all of your tests, you put the test system aside, put in the patch or upgrade, press the button, come back in the morning, find out if everything is fine or not. If it's fine, then you promote it to production. If it's not, then you start looking into the problem. So you will be much more relaxed in applying patches and upgrades if you know that you can actually, on a press of a button, test the whole system. Certainly, there are drawbacks of automated testing. What we said, the cost of running the test is negligible, but there is a significant cost involved in creating and maintaining these automated tests. To start with, it requires technically higher skilled resources than manual tests. Manual testing generally, as we know, requires people that are kind of like functionally familiar with Maximo, but their technical skills don't need to be high. They are basically users of Maximo, and they are just using the system as any Maximo user would do. Whereas with automated testing, you really need techies to come into the picture and actually start creating and maintaining these automated tests. Of course, if you are using a commercial product for your Maximo automation, then there will be a cost of ownership. Or if you are using one of the free testing tools that are available on the market, then you will have to put lots of your time and effort to develop or to specialize these generally generic frameworks to work with your Maximo. So there are drawbacks, or there is investment that needs to go into automated testing, both on the effort and money to get it up and running. So a few graphs just to illustrate what we were talking about just now. So in your manual testing scenario, let's say we are at the beginning of Maximo implementation project. We've just installed Maximo out of the box. We have a long list of changes and modifications and configurations that we want to do to our Maximo, but we are on day one, and basically there's nothing to test. It's just like out of the box Maximo, and you should trust that IBM have done a good job at making sure that out of box Maximo is of good quality. Okay, so day one, your test coverage is very high because there are very few tests that you can do, and your costs are very low because you're not testing much, therefore it doesn't cost you much. But then as your implementation project goes along, you will be adding functionality day by day, week by week, month by month. So there will be much more things to test. So therefore, unless you have a very flexible manual resource pool, like that you can, on demand suddenly add like 100 or 200 people to do testing, generally your test coverage will start dropping. So basically, the number of tests will be overwhelming for the team to do the manual testing, and therefore you will have to reduce, you will have to prioritize, you will have to say, on this occasion, we will only do testing for the purchasing and procurement because that's the area where we worked, and we will not do, for example, work orders and inventory because we didn't do much work in those areas. That, if you're lucky, that will work. But most time people are not lucky, and it just in the end proves that the changes that you've done in purchasing somehow found a way to affect work orders, or somehow find a way to affect inventory. Okay, so that is the danger of low or making your test coverage smaller, or prioritizing over what you're going to test. And equally, as you would imagine, cost and time is just going to go up. More and more tests, of course. Each time, you have to pay for somebody to go through the test. Each time it takes longer for human testers to, each test will take a certain number of minutes or whatever to complete. So as the number of tests goes up, even the overall time to go through the full system testing will go up. So if we at one stage say, well, all right, let's try to automate this. So let's say this point in time where it says automation, that's the time when our decision to start automating. So these green lines now are telling us that basically as we automate, initially we will have costs of creating these tests. So the cost of manual testing, cost of automation testing will be similar for a while, but then it will start dropping, because once when we automate our test, as I said, for the execution, we just hand it over to computers and they will do the execution, so it will cost us nothing. So over time, your costs will be dropping, and your test coverage is just going to grow. Each test that you add, each automated test that you add to your test suite, will always be, there's no reason not to run it. You know, if it is your servers running it overnight, then there's no reason for you to say, I don't want to run this test because I don't know, it's going to make server do more work. You know, servers are there to do more work for you, so, and so on and so forth. So this test coverage is basically always at 100%, because we don't see any reason why we shouldn't do 100% test coverage when we are doing regression testing, irrespective that we only maybe put a couple of trivial changes in the system. Just run the whole thing, it costs you nothing. Okay, so let's move on. So, you know, there are obvious things that we know about when we are thinking about automation of testing in Maximo, like regression testing or functional testing, but there are other things that you can automate, other aspects of testing that you can automate. So typical one that I was talking about so far is regression testing. Make sure that after a change, your system works just as well as before that change, that nothing is broken, they say. Okay, so that's like my most typical way of thinking about testing. However, we also have performance testing. Maybe we have put new servers, maybe we have decided to, I don't know, modify processors or memory, or we've added a new module to Maximo. We don't know whether it's going to slow down everything and so on. So you basically try to simulate a pressure on the system. So let's simulate if we have normal load of users, maybe it's like, you know, 30 users logged on at the same time doing various things. Then you say, all right, well, what if that goes up to 100? How does the system behave? What if it goes to 500 and so on? So performance testing, you know, whether it's load testing just to see how system works under normal expected loads, or stress testing to see, you know, what are the limits of our system, is something that really you need computers to do that simulation. It is highly impractical to do performance testing, you know, with human resources. Okay, security testing, something that you should really automate and make sure that every day, you know, the right profiles of users have the right access to the right application. As we all know, you know, any security breaches are very dangerous, especially in this day and age, you know, with hacking and all of that. So security testing is important process, and if you automate it, then you will be able to run it on a regular basis, daily, hourly, whatever, and you know, be at peace that everything is as secure as you wanted it to be. And the last of these kind of like concepts in automated testing is system monitoring. Just basically, you know, make sure that your Maximo is working. Make sure that users can log in, make sure they can open work order application, make sure that the integrations are working and so on. And you set up the system monitoring test and then make them run every minute, every 5 minutes or whatever. And if something goes wrong, you get alerted as an administrator, like an email or whatever. Okay, so what can we test within Maximo? So I'll just actually open all of these boxes here. Okay, types of tests. When we think about testing, we just generally think of a manual tester, a human person sitting behind his PC and just going through some business scenarios like, whatever, work order approval, biomanager, and so on. Okay, and the truth is, yeah, that vast majority, even automated tests, are of user interface type. That test will launch a browser and then just simulate what every human user would do. It will, log in into Maximo, click where it needs to click, type where it needs to type. Okay, so that's user interface, and that's, as I say, common sense. Everybody imagines testing as like user interface testing. But there are other things that we can test in Maximo. Definitely, integration framework is it's a very sensitive thing for various reasons. It's complex because it requires different types of enterprise software to talk to each other. And it's also, technically, it's something that happens in the background, and if you don't watch it, sometimes you don't even know that it's broken. Only when, these problems escalate and become very big problems, that's when you hear about them, and then you try to fix them. But by then, they're already quite big problems, and they are doing damage. Whereas if you automate your integration testing, then you can, have it probing the integrations every, let's call it 5 minutes, and just make sure that everything works as it should. We can also test, we don't need to confirm that Maximo is working okay only through user interface tests. Yes, that's the most realistic way, but there are also ways of testing Maximo functionality on the server level, what we call MBO, Maximo Business Object. So work order is a Maximo Business Object, purchase order is a Maximo Business Object, etc., etc. Anything that you do in the user interface that reflects on the server on some sort of like equivalent activity with these Maximo Business Objects. So if you press a Approve Work Order button on the user interface, there will be equivalent Java method for the work order business object that will perform that work order approval on the server level. So and that type of testing is very, very good because it happens much faster than user interface. So let's say user interface, maybe we want to do it overnight because we have whatever 300-400 tests. But if you want to run the same or equivalent level of 300 tests on server level, so that can happen in 10 minutes. So then you can say, all right, maybe I'll do user interface overnight, but actually I'll do these MBO tests on demand because I may be a developer, maybe I'm configuring some parts in Maximo and so on, and I'm not sure if what I'm doing is going to break something. Let me just press the button, and in 5-10 minutes I'll know whether whatever I'm doing has affected it. Okay, database also, people frequently want to peek inside the database and make sure that the database is healthy and that, when you save a purchase order, it actually is properly saved inside the database, or if you delete something, that the state of the database is exactly as you expect, and so on. So you might want to do database tests. Workflows are another thing that automation is like really a lifesaver, because workflows, well, some of them are dead simple and it doesn't take long to go through test of a workflow, but some of them have lots of branches, lots of various combinations, if this, then that, and something else, and so on. So it could be very laborious to test complex workflows, whereas if you automate that process, okay, you'll put a bit of effort to start with to go through all of these scenarios, but thereafter you just press the button and the server does all of the hard work for you. And then lastly, of course, it would be nice if you could also automate testing of Maximo mobile solutions, for whichever solution you're using. All right, so that's talking about Maximo and about like why would we want to automate our testing, what sorts of things we can automate, and what types of tests we can have. Okay, so that's kind of like that story, and we talked about cost benefits and drawbacks of automation. What I just want to now give you a kind of like very high level overview of what is available to you if you are looking to automate your testing. So let's first start with generic solutions, generic software out there that is available for testing. And then we will look into specialized solutions. So generic would be those which are kind of like unaware of Maximo. They can test anything. And specialized solutions are those specifically designed for automated testing of Maximo. Okay, so generic solutions. In terms of what is available to you, you have, in terms of open source, free solutions, there are several things that are kind of like very prominent, very, very popular. So for code level testing, we have JUnit and TestNG. Those are very famous like unit testing frameworks. For sort of like integration testing, SOAP, sending SOAP messages into Maximo or outside, or REST calls and all of that, there is a tool called SOAP UI, very popular. For user interface testing, there is a framework called Selenium. And then for performance testing, there is also like a very famous open source framework called JMeter. So I'm not going to go into details about these. I'm just letting you know that they exist. And if you just Google any of these names, you can then get much more information about them. Commercial generic solutions, this is really our choice of two most popular, but there are hundreds of them. I would say these two are most popular, which is HP. Usually, people tend to know it as QTP, but these days they call it Unified Functional Testing. And equivalent to that, IBM have their Rational suite of tools for all sorts of automated testing. Okay, so what would you gain and what would you lose with generic solutions? Well, in terms of what you would gain is that you can say, well, all right, it's a generic solution, so it's not just Maximo. I can, test my Oracle financials, and I can test, my Click software and so on. So it could be one software that will cover overall enterprise software testing. They, of course, these are generic and very popular things. You're talking about millions of users around the world. So it's a large community. I have numerous forums and so on. And also, consequently, there is a large pool of skilled resources. So if you are looking for a JUnit developer or Selenium developer, there will be thousands of them out there, hundreds of thousands out there. So that's good stuff about generic solutions. What are the cons? Well, these things have been developed without knowing anything about Maximo. They never heard of Maximo when they were developing these generic solutions. So because they give you just kind of like very fundamental building blocks for your tests, your developers that will be using these solutions, they need to know Maximo very deeply in order to, from a generic framework, start kind of like producing automated tests that will work with Maximo. And for that reason, the general kind of like problem with the tests developed using generic solution is they are a bit brittle. When you say brittle, is they work for a while and then they stop working. Something has changed in Maximo, new patch has come in, somebody removed one field of the screen and added another, and so on. And suddenly this test, which is not really developed with a generic solution, which is kind of like very explicit, suddenly can't cope with the change. So then the developer needs to go in and say, right, okay, I need to change this line of code and I need to add this and so on. So they tend to be brittle. And for that reason, if you have like anything major changing in Maximo, like a new release, which maybe slightly differently deals with user interface for Maximo, like what we had changed from 7.5 to 7.6 versions, that will require you each time when you get an upgrade to have to kind of go back to your test and make them work again. Okay, specialized solutions. Let's see what we've got. Well, of course, first MaxTAF, because that's us. Then there is another solution called YAT Maximo, and so these are kind of like functional testing frameworks. And you have Stress Tester as a performance testing framework that's produced by a company called Reflective Solutions. I think there are a few others, but I think if you type in Maximo automated testing in Google, these three will come up. There is also one interesting thing that is available, and it is two tools that IBM have put into public domain, but they are not supported. So basically, historically, IBM, for their own testing purposes, for the team that's developing Maximo, bit by bit started creating like these small frameworks for their personal needs. And at one stage, they say, all right, we'll make it available for download, but don't call us, don't ask any questions, we don't provide any documentation, or okay, I think there is like one, a single Word document, that's it. And so these are unsupported things made by IBM. But, to some organization, even if unsupported, maybe, they have strong technical skills in-house to work with it. Anyway, it's worth mentioning that such thing exists. Just equivalent to what we did with generic solutions. So specialized solutions, well, pros are that it's specialized for Maximo. Therefore, it should work. Well, I can vouch for MaxTAF. I can't vouch for other solutions, but I would expect them to work with Maximo without users having to understand how Maximo works. Because that knowledge of how Maximo works is embedded in the software. Therefore, your resources don't need to be, some pure geniuses, Java programmer. And we will show you MaxTAF in a minute. They will, it's kind of like, they should be very easy to put tests together. You, of course, get professional support, so that's part of your commercial package and so on. That problem of, IBM releases new Maximo version, well, that's fine because, like, for example, our company, as soon as we learn from IBM about new version, we start adapting MaxTAF to work with that new Maximo version, and so on. And as a consequence of that, your maintenance costs, your basically tests are not going to be brittle, so therefore you won't spend too much time maintaining them, and to make tests, it should be a very quick process. Okay, cons, well, you can't test SAP or Oracle financials. They are specialized for Maximo, so basically use them to test Maximo. There are fewer experts in the world just because these things are a smaller niche market and consequently a smaller community out there. Okay. So that's the story about automated testing in Maximo, which I hope that we have given you some sort of like high-level overview and giving you some food for thought about, if you're thinking of going automated way, what are the things that you need to discuss and make sure, that you know what the benefits are, what eventually what the best technical solution for it, and so on. So in this second part of this webinar, I would just like to show you our software, and I'm not going to do that in great detail. I'm just going to show you like the most simple, creation of a basic user interface test, and then if you like what you see, I would encourage you to contact us for a more thorough demo of the full functionality of MaxTAF. Okay, so just briefly, it's been in existence since 2012. Unlike other solutions, actually Maximo is an add-on to Maximo, so it's like one of your industry solutions. So once we install Maximo, it becomes integral part. Once we install MaxTAF, it becomes integral part of your Maximo, and therefore, anybody can use it. It's the same user interface where you maintain it together with the rest of your Maximo. You don't need any separate hardware resources and so on. So there are lots of benefits. And also it's sitting inside Maximo and it can do some really smart testing on the server end. Okay, so as I say here, capable of testing all Maximo layers. All those like, workflows and MBOs and MIF, we've developed it so that you can cover all of that. It is based on open source framework. So I mentioned JUnit and Selenium as your open source generic options. That's how we started, and then we specialized those two frameworks to work for Maximo and with Maximo. And we have proudly been certified and validated by IBM, so we exist in their solutions directory, and they really have high opinion of MaxTAF. Okay, just quickly, about what distinguishes MaxTAF from others. The record and play, so you can create tests just by recording and then playing them back. And I will demonstrate that later. There is no programming necessary. You don't need to be a techie to create tests, but if you are a techie, you can make much smarter tests. So there is kind of like a place under the sun for every profile of your Maximo team. The tests are generally very robust. They will survive upgrades, or most of them will survive upgrades. Most of them will survive, changes that people normally do in Maximo, like rearrange screens and so on. All of that intelligence in these tests, it's built in to kind of understand how things work in Maximo. It provides you this server level testing, and that we can do only because we are integral part of Maximo. So that's very important. It's extensible framework. You can actually in-house bit by bit make it more and more specific to your needs. And there are some additional benefits that I don't really want to spend too much time. But for example, you can convert your UI test into a training material. So you can have it like an interactive training material. This is how you create a purchase order, and then it will start this, what originally was a test, and then it will stop, and it will prompt the user to do an action, then continue, and so on. But there are some additional benefits which are not directly linked with testing. Okay, that's that. And the last 15 minutes, I will just spend just showing you very quickly, a most basic example of how you use MaxTAF, for example, to create a user interface test. Okay, so let's see if I do this. You should be seeing my screen. Okay, and right, we go back. So as I mentioned, it is integral part of Maximo. And if I log in into my Maximo, then in this list of all Maximo applications, there is MaxTAF there. So fully accessible from Maximo. You work with it like with any other Maximo application. So we'll come back to this in a second, just to show you how these applications looks like. But for the sakes of this demonstration, let's just go through a scenario. For example, we want to create a new test, and that test will, it will follow business process of creating a basic work order and approving it. I mean, every company has that test. Okay, so let's see how we would do it with MaxTAF in the fastest possible way. Okay, this looks better. There you go. Okay, so here it is in your tools menu of your Firefox browser. There is an option called MaxTAF recording. So we will start that. We'll have a look what it looks like. Let's just rearrange these screens. Okay, right. So this pop-up window from Firefox browser is basically the recorder. It's going to record everything that I do in Maximo. And with this ping button here, I control whether I'm recording or not recording. So here I go. I'll start recording and then just start basically normally using Maximo. So I will log in and type in the password. Okay, I will sign in. And as you can see here on the right-hand side, all of these things are recorded. Like every step that I've done so far is recorded there. Here we are. So let's just simply go to work orders. Okay, here we are, and maybe create a new work order. Cool. So we got this far, so we've created a new work order. Maybe at this stage I want to capture this work order number, because later on when I look through my test results, if there is a problem, I want to know which work order it was that was created at that point, so that I can go back to it and inspect it. So let's capture this this work order number. So on the right click, there are various options that are offered to you. I mean, there are even more options if I show all available commands. So, if you ever start using MaxTAF, you will learn about all of them. But at the moment, I just want to store this value that is in the work order number. So I will give it a name. I will store it under name Ronam, for example. Okay. So I have stored it. And maybe now I want to add a line in my run log, in the test run log. I will add a line there which will tell me that the work order number was whatever, 1430 in this case when it was recorded. So I simply just go for option add record line, and I say work order is, and then I put the name of that variable that I just used to capture the number. Okay, there it is. So, okay, we don't need this additional information for this report line, and I have it here. Okay, right. Okay, so now our report will tell us which work order number it was when the test was running. And we go now for the rest of the test. So what we said, let's just put some basic information. Let's say test. Let's pick up a location from, let's say, drill down, which would be a typical way how people pick up location. So maybe something in the boiler room. Okay, so maybe this, whatever. Okay, here it is, fine. Maybe I want to press save, which is good as well. And if I look at the status, at the moment, the status is waiting for approval, which is good. And maybe my future test, when it runs, it should check that at this stage, value in the status field is waiting for approval. We do that simply by just clicking on the option assert value, waiting for approval. So I've done that, and as you can see here in the recorder, I have that assert. So that's my pass-fail criteria at the moment, or one of my pass-fail criteria. At this stage, status is waiting for approval. Okay, well, now we can approve it, for example. So maybe we go change status, and we choose approve, and we click OK. Okay. That's great, and now the status has changed to APPR, so that I want also to be my pass-fail criteria. So I will add that criteria as well. So the assert value at this stage, and I expect it to be APPR. Good. So we've done that, and let's say that that is our test that we wanted to create. So we can simply stop recording here. And all we have to do now is from this recording, create a MaxTAF test. And that is what I will show you next. So my first step is to export this recording as a MaxTAF file. And I will give it some name, for example, webinar 1, for example. Let's call it like that. Save that. Good. And if I go back to my Maximo, and now I go to MaxTAF, next thing will be to import that recording and make out of that recording a proper MaxTAF test. So let's have a look quickly what we have here. We have 3 applications, test case, that's where I'm going next. But just to tell you about the other 2 test suites, that's place where you bunch tests together. So for your overnight runs, you will bunch 200 tests together, and then you would all run it as a suite. And then we have MaxTAF administration, which holds various configuration options for MaxTAF. So the main application is really test case. And if I go there, you know, of course, as you expected, it's just a normal Maximo application. The user interface is exactly the same. So I can see all of my, in this case, tests, which are in the system. So what we'll do at this stage, we will import that recording that we created. Here it is on my desktop. I'll open it. Okay. And it says inbound transaction will process successfully to queue. That means basically that we have imported it. So if I refresh this, okay, here it is. There is my test that I just recorded. So let's see what it looks like. Let's see what test case application looks like. Here we are. We've got various fields and so on. Let's ignore all of that for now, and just see that our recording is immediately going to run, you know, without any hiccups. Let's do that. So what we expect now when I run, that another Firefox browser will be launched, and we will see all of those clicks and types that I performed, we will see performed in front of our eyes. Okay, so let's go. I'm launching it. And as you can see, there is a thing, and it's very fast because MaxTAF does it at most optimal speed, but you can recognize that this is all of those actions that I've done. And that's the end of our test, you know. So maybe it took me a minute, but when we were playing back, it took maybe 15 seconds, or as this says, 19 seconds in specific. Okay, so let's see what we've got. That's our test case application. That's the test that we've just recorded. We saw that this run test case button actually runs the test. And down here, it has created a little report. Now, that report will contain what we decided to put in. And actually, the only thing that we did decide to put in was that we wanted to capture the work order number. We could have put all sorts of things. We could have said, whatever the value of the status is waiting for approval at this stage, and then later on when it's approved, and so on. It's entirely down to the developer to decide how much verbosity they're going to have in the test report. Okay, so we have a failure count of 0. Yeah, everything went all right. All of those asserts, went all right, and there were no failures. Let's have first a quick look at what sort of script MaxTAF has created. So this is a MaxTAF script, and as you can see, it's all XML based. And the reason why we chose XML is because everybody's familiar and nobody's frightened of XML. I mean, if you are a good techie, you can do it in Java as well. In fact, our XML gets converted in Java, and then Java gets executed, but you don't need to know that. If you're happy with XML, then you work with XML. And as you can see, you will recognize, what these things are. I don't know, it says we are sending keys, max admin, that's obviously when we are logging in, there's the password and so on and so forth. It's, fairly readable, what you have here. You will actually, even if you don't know much about MaxTAF, you will kind of understand what's going on there. So let's see how easy it is to make a change. For example, I think I made a spelling mistake here. So instead of say boiler test, I put broiler test. Let's make that very simple modification, but we could have made any other modification that we wanted to the script. All I want to show you is that you make a modification and then you can immediately run the test with that modification. You don't need to compile and deploy or anything like that. So here it is, save, compile, as simple as that. And now if I run this test again, and why not, it will, at this time, hopefully correctly spell boiler test rather than broiler. Okay, right. So that's how you maintain MaxTAF tests. The whole thing is in Maximo. You don't need to have any external software. It's all there for you to use, directly as you would use any other Maximo application. And just as a last thing, let's see what the errors look like in Maximo. So errors are very important in testing because, okay, we are not just happy testers. We don't test things so that, that they all work. We are actually much happier when there are failures because then we know that we have caught a bug. Okay, so let's just deliberately introduce an error. So I will, in this part which says assert that the value is APPR, that is after we have approved, I will put, let's say, comp. So you and I, we know that that's wrong with status, but let's just see how Maximo or MaxTAF deals or how it reports errors. Okay, save, compile again, and then let's run it again and see what happens. I mean, everything will more or less be the same in the front end, but at the back end, or what MaxTAF is supposed to do is when it comes to compare the value of the status field, it will say, this is not what I expected. I was expecting something else. Okay, let's see. So we have here are our runs. First two runs were without any problems. Yet the latest run says we have one failure. So let's have a look. Okay, so it has failed, and now, now it's reporting. It says this step has failed. You told me in the script that the value should be COMP, and instead I found APPR. For that reason, I'm failing the test. And actually, there are further more technical aspects of reporting this failure. One is here, which tells you precisely in which line of the code the failure happened. And this is like a deep technical reporting for, familiar to Java programmers, if any. Okay, so as I said, there is so much more to MaxTAF. We've just like scratched the surface. As you can see, so here there are all sorts of things. How you create work orders on the server, MIF health check, how you check that your MIF is working, and so on and so forth. So I would really encourage you, if this has kind of like tickled your curiosity, to contact us, and then we will be more than happy to show you the whole system. So on that note, and I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome, because it's just over an hour since we started this webinar, I would like to thank you very much for attending, and hope that you found this of interest and useful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for coming. If you would like to request a demo of MaxTAF, the link is in the description.